These lovely little zip pouches are really useful and they make great gifts. You can use them as makeup bags, a little bag to keep all your sewing kit in, or any of your craft things. So we have outer fabric, we have a 7 or 8 inch zip, and we have other inner fabric. Here's one I made from the remains of an old duvet cover after I've finished making a pyjama set from it. And again, different lining on the inside. So all you need is some fabric. I've got 2 fat quarters, a 7 or 8 inch zip, about 20 centimetres, and some iron-on medium weight interfacing. So from your fabric, you are going to cut 6 pieces in total. You want 2 in your main fabric, that's going to be the outside. 2 pieces in the lining fabric for the inside, and 2 pieces in your interfacing. Now, the bag I've made is, the length of the zip is 23 centimetres, just over 8 inches, almost 9 inches in fact. So I used a pattern here, so I've cut myself a pattern which is 25 centimetres long by 19 centimetres. So if you cut yourself a rectangle, 25 by 19, then take 2 4 centimetre squares out the 2 bottom corners. So it's 4 centimetres along and 4 centimetres down. And that will be the shape of your bag. So I've cut my pieces. And I've started already attached one piece of the interfacing to one side of the main fabric, the outer layer. So I'm going to finish the second side. So interfacing is a substance which gives strength and structure to fabrics. So that's what's used in your collars and cuffs. Now it has a glue layer impregnated on one side, so that's the slightly shiny side that you see. If it's not shiny, it'll be textured. And that goes onto the wrong side of your fabric. So we're going to place it on the wrong side of the fabric. Now I like to iron it from the fabric side, and that stops the glue from your interfacing going through onto your iron. Now it reacts with the steam, so you need a hot iron, number 3 setting, and plenty of steam. And I'm just holding the iron over each area for about 5 to 7 seconds to make sure it's well fused. So get the whole of the iron over the edges. The hottest part of the iron is in the middle, so tapping away at the edges like that isn't really going to fuse them very successfully. So once you've done the whole of your fabric, and you can check, so if you can't peel away the corners, then it's fairly well fused. Make sure your fabric doesn't have any creases before you put the interfacing on it, because you could end up just sealing them in. And obviously you can't iron your interfacing before you attach it to the fabric, or you'll end up either gluing it to your ironing board or gluing it to your iron. Okay, I think that's done. The first thing I'm going to do is make little tabs for the ends of my zip. So the corners that you cut out here of your main fabric, I'm going to use to make the tabs. So I've got my little square, I'm going to fold it approximately in half, and I'm going to use that to cover up the ends of my zip. Now I think I'm actually going to cover up the zip I had shortened because it was too long, so I've actually stitched over the teeth I'm actually just going to cover that up. So I've laid the folded side of my tab across the teeth, and because this is an island zip, it's not going to stress my machine too much to sew over the teeth, as long as I do it carefully. Okay, so for this I'm pinning in perpendicular. So I've put my zip foot on. So the zip foot's going to allow me to get very close to this edge, and I've moved my needle over to the left. So it's going to be very close to the edge. So I'm lining the edge of my foot with the edge of my fabric. I want to do a couple of reverse stitches first, just to anchor my threads. And I'm going to remove at least that first pin. Just getting caught a little on the teeth, so I'm going to hold on to the threads at the back, give it a little tug. There we go. Now I'm going to repeat that process with the other end of the zip. Now, because the top end always wants to splay out, I'm going to attach and pin that side in first, then pull that into alignment, pin this one too, so now our two zip tapes are lying parallel. I'm going to repeat that process to stitch the tab in place. Again, I felt the feed dogs weren't gripping, so I gave it a little tug. You hold on to the threads at the back and give it a little tug, it will help it move through the machine better. That is our zip prepared. Next, I'm going to take one piece of my lining. I'm going to take my zip. I'm going to place the zip so the top edge is along the top of your lining, the top edge of your zip tape, and one of the outer layers. I'm going to place that on top, right side down. So lining's right side up, this goes right side down. I'm going to make a zip sandwich. You'll notice I've started with the bottom end of the zip, and I'm going to pin through my 3 layers. So everything is held in place. Now to sew this, I still have my zip foot on, still have my needle in the left position. We're kind of sewing blind here. Can't see what I'm doing, but I can feel it. So you can feel the ridge of your zip, and you want to sew along this top edge. So if you put your zip foot up against that ridge, you're going to be pretty much there, and keep your zip foot again there. You can see that ridge created by my nail. If you want to, you could take your marking chalk or a pencil along there to draw a visual reference for you. And again, feel as you go. Continue feeling it. You can see the ridge. And checking that my layers are still together. Now I'm getting close to the zip pull at the bottom, so I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to put my needle in the fabric, and that will hold everything in place, and that will let me open my zip. Okay, so you can raise the presser foot. You can get the zip out of the way. Oops. So it doesn't want to get out the way. Realign my 3 layers, and I can continue to the end. That's my first side of the zip stitched in place. So I'm going to repeat that with the second side. So you're each inside. Grab hold of your zip. Then we're going to take our second piece of lining fabric. Again, same process. Lay your lining on the table, lay your zip on top, matching the top edge. Take your outer piece, lay that on the top, checking your side seams. Oops. There we go. Checking your side seams are even. There we are. Sides are matching too. So bringing the 3 layers together. Now, because the zip pull is at the top this time, I'm going to actually start by opening it a little, and then I'll stop part of the way down to close it again. So again, I'm going to feel where my zip is. That's it there. Press your foot right up to there. Start with some reverse. Again, I can still feel my ridge there. Right. Zip pull is here, so I'm going to stop now. goodness me, this is a tricky one there. Again, feel where I'm going. The problem about having your pins facing this direction is you're likely to catch your fingers on them. And I'm continuing right to the end of my fabric. So there's my zip stitched in, and the lining, we've got one piece of lining either side, so I'm going to go and give that a press now. I've not made any changes to my needle position or my zip foot, it's still where it was. This will enable me to stitch close to the fold of the fabric here. And I just want to top stitch the fabric in position. Make sure that you have your lining pointing each way away from the zip. I'm starting at the top corner. No reason really, just because that's where I always start. Regular stitch length of 2.5 millimeters. Again, keep smoothing the fabric away from the zip. I'm going to pivot at the bottom, so needle in, press your foot up, pivot across. Again, needle in the fabric to turn, to come back down the other side. Now, if you think that this is going to get in your way, again, do that little trick again. Needle in, press your foot up, push the zip away. And finally across the top. And back to my starting position. One or two back stitches in there to secure my threads. So now my zip is inserted and top stitched. Now we're actually going to form the shape of the bag. So you're going to bring the top two pieces, your main fabric, together, and I'm going to pin along the top edge. Then I'm going to go down this side. So starting at this corner here, again make sure your corners are aligned. going to go to the bottom corner and bring that edge together as well. Then I'm going to work my way into the middle. And the two lining pieces. Now you may find that you have a little excess lining at this stage, but just squish everything down. You usually find the seam allowances want to point up the way, so just squish it flat and see which way they want to lie, and just pin that lining into place. Now this is a stage. These are our little tabs. You may find you've got quite a bit of extra fabric here, so I can take some of this away now. And I may even cut the corner of the zip off. We have a lot of bulk here, so we need to try and reduce that as much as possible. So I'm just grading these seam allowances to reduce the amount of fabric that's going to be in the corner. Right, I think that's a bit better. So I'm going to continue around pinning. Now this is the lining. So again, matching the corner, matching the other corner. And finally down the second long side. Again, match top corners. Match your bottom corner. And remove any excess. So I've tidied up as much as I can there, removed a lot of excess fabric, just now lying all over my table. And I'm going to finish off matching this long side. Again, you work from outer corners towards the centre and just squish it all down. Right, now we're going to stitch these 4 sides. So I'm going to move my zip foot, replace it with my standard foot, and move my needle back to centre position because I want to use a 1 centimetre seam allowance. So the first long side, matched it up with my 1 centimetre. Okay, keeping my edges aligned. Yep. Now, when I come to this thick bit, I need to squish it all down and go very carefully. And I just need to help my machine over this lump. To remove that pin too. I've got something ready to help me push all this excess. First side done. The order of stitching here doesn't matter at all. So this is the bottom layer of the main fabric, which has the interfacing on it. This will form the bottom of your bag. Now for the second side, the second long side rather. So again, I'm going to slow down a bit going over the bump and make sure my corner is secured. Okay, just squish it down. And get something to help feed it under the presser foot. I've got a bit of a ridge building up here, so I've put my needle in the fabric, lifted my presser foot, and I'm just smoothing out the fabric. Finally, the lining, the base along the lining. So we need to remember to leave a gap in the middle again for turning. So sort of about 1/3 of the way along. I'm going to leave a bit and then sew the rest. So you'll notice I didn't sew around the corners because we're going to do those now. So this is known as boxed corners, and it gives a three-dimensional shape to anything you're making. So I'm going to open the seam allowances out, flatten the edges of the fabric, so you're bringing your two seams together, side seam and bottom. So I'm going to pin through the seam at the front and make sure that my pin comes through at the back. That way I'll know that my seams are exactly aligned. So I'm going to pin all 4 corners. Again, open out my corners, bring the seams together. Right, now I'm going to sew across all these corners. So 1 centimetre again for my seam allowance. Reverse stitch into the corner. And reverse to anchor your stitches. Corner 1. So I've sewn all my 4 corners, so we're just about done. We need to reach into the gap in the lining and we're needing to pull everything through. Now this is where it's important that you have already opened the zip or you won't be able to turn your bag. So you're reaching through the open zip and pulling the main fabric through. So we have our gap in the bottom, so we're going to bring those edges together and just close that off with our edge stitch. So I've brought those edges together laying on top of each other. And I'm going to stitch very close to the edge to seal the gap. So once that's done, you can push the lining inside. Push it right into your corners. And you want to give the edges a little press along here. That's the press. I'm just going to give it a little finger press. I've even almost managed to match that flower. And that was pure chance. Corners out. And there we have our lovely little makeup bag or sewing pouch. These make a lovely gift, especially gifts for yourself.